All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you hit the play button, which means you know exactly what's about to happen for you. Whatever the goal, whatever the challenge is, whatever the obstacle is, whatever difficulties may be in your way, we are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. All right. And I am super, super pumped today, as I always am, as you guys are probably used to hearing me say that, because this is just what I do. It's what I'm about now. All right. I have Mr. Nigel O'Quinn, the founder of Higher Healthier, HIGR Health, no, Higher Health, right?
Higher health.
Yeah, higher health, excuse me, higher health. And I got to tell you, being a fitness guy, being an athletic guy, being someone that is always interested in hearing more about what I could be putting in my body at the current moment, I am training for a marathon. I'm really excited to dive into your story, Nigel, in regards to how you discovered and how you came along this journey of saying, hey, there's certain ways you have to eat, and there's certain preventative things that we can be doing. And not only that, but I'll tell you now is, my father watched my father have a kidney failure from when I was in high school, and he didn't get the kidney transplant until I started college. So I saw him on dialysis throughout my whole high school journey. So as I was looking and researching and seeing what you're all about, I was really appreciative of the work that you're doing from a nutrition standpoint and all the things that you're trying to build out. So all that being said, welcome to the show, and let's get into this, man.
As one, thanks so much for having me on. What a pleasure.
And
So
well, the thing is, one of the things that, and I was listening to you before we started recording, is one of the things that really struck me about your story is you actually started off as an athlete, in your high school years and your grade school years. And one of the things you actually admitted to was, hey, your diet wasn't the best. So I'd love for you to kind of just start right there, how school was for you, what your upbringing was like, and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll kind of get into your journey on how you built out the business you're in now.
yeah, absolutely. I was one. So first of all, sorry to hear that of your father. That is a rough journey. I've got a friend that went through that, so I kind of got walked through that, and what a roller coaster that is. It's a hard
And,
thing to go through when the kidneys or any organ failure is happening
yeah,
in
and
somebody's body. Wow.
the thing is, not only that is, I remember the day he got diagnosed. You got to think, recently his father, my grandfather, had actually passed away from it. So like we came from the hospital, my mother and my sister looked at me, it's like, yeah, that's the thing his father had. Now they just look at me like, so ever since then, I've always been like, tuned in to making sure. I mean, I was playing football at the time, so I was constantly working out. But when I was done, I got into running. I got into like becoming like a real health nut, because these things can be hereditary. I still do a lot of stuff with the kidney walks out here. And it's again, like you said, when you see it happening, your antennas really do go up. So
Yeah, no, great call. That can be such a weird way to say it, but like can be such a blessing when you've got family history going on, and you can
right,
now make the necessary changes so that you can
exactly.
change course for your family history.
Right.
And it's so good for all listeners to kind of take note on that. That
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like if you've got family history of that stuff, you can address this, you can get on it, and then you can start to change the chapter on your family history and make sure that your sons and daughters know how to equip themselves and what to watch out for, and be proactive on their health. So
1000%.
yeah, but yeah, getting into my story a little bit, that background,
Mm-hmm.
you got to hear, I went to university like so many others
Right.
that do, and I came out the expert, and I say that with serious air quotes.
Mm-hmm.
I went to become an expert, that's for sure, but when I came out, I ended up coming out with the worst diet of my life, and the
You
reason being
came
is
out of
that
high school or college?
out of college,
Right.
yeah,
And
so
then you were a kinesiology major too. So you had already been right,
yeah,
learning
like
this.
I was, athletic. So I played my sports. I grew up in Canada. And if your
Mhm.
listeners haven't picked up on that yet, you will.
All right. Keep going.
Canada in
I spent some time in
Saskatchewan.
Canada, Speaking of, my father has family in Canada, so we go out there frequently.
Yeah, nice. So I was born and raised in Saskatchewan. I'm a prairie boy, so we had hockey, that was my game. And I did martial arts as well. I ended up growing, the one martial art that I had in my hometown at the time was Taekwondo. And so that's the one I got to do, and that's what I did. So I did those, and I was looking for, well, what is fuel as a human being? And
Hmm.
then what is optimal fuel? Like, what do the high-end athletes want to be taking to not only perform their best in the sport of their choosing, but also stay in the game for a very long time?
Yeah.
So I was interested in what that fuel is as human beings that we need to have to be optimal, kind of key athletes in whatever sport that is. So I went into kinesiology, and health and nutrition kind of major is what I wanted to do. I was always really interested in that nutritional edge, but what I didn't understand that I was going to become a professional and an expert in
Hmm.
going into university was I was going to be an expert on the food guide, the food pyramid. This is a structure that was made up by the government
Hmm.
that would detail what foods they wanted most people consuming.
Right.
And I never learned until later on that that food guide, and this still seems so funny to say, but that food guide is actually a complete scam. And when I became an expert on that particular scam, I got very sick. I ended up with gastrointestinal issues, major stomach upset, digestive issues going on that were starting to impact my performance, my recovery, my hormone production as a young man.
Hmm.
Not these are not good things. And when you've got symptoms
Right.
constantly in your life, that there's some serious issues going on. And it's like, well, what's happening? I'm the expert. I know everything there is to know about food, yet I can't even get my own gut in order. And so that's when my learning really started. And I came across a couple books that I really credit for getting me onto this new path of understanding
Hmm.
what we actually should be operating on as human beings. And one of those books was called Deep Nutrition by Dr. Kate Shanahan. Today I don't agree with everything she's got going on, but that book, she was absolutely on point.
Hmm.
And ultimately, the message was just getting back to human foods, like eating meat off of the bone, eating the whole animal, not just specific, things that you enjoy. And what we've been programmed to go do. We go into a grocery store as one, and we go, and a lot of people hopefully can or probably do relate to this, is
Yeah.
you go get the box of chicken breast, right?
Yes.
Or you
Buy
you
in
go,
bulk. Right. Right.
yeah, you buy in bulk, or you go jam out with your buddies on a wing Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Like,
I've definitely had my share of those.
yeah, right, guilty as well.
Yeah.
And but what ends up happening is with that programming is we start to no longer ask the question about, well, what about the rest of that chicken? Did it have no value? Were the organs in it, like were the feet, were the gizzard, like all
Yeah.
these things, did they have no value? Right?
Right.
We're not going to eat that part. We're just going to go get our box of chicken breast.
Hmm.
And what ends up happening is that we become nutritionally deficient without even thinking about it. Our food supply has programmed us to reach for certain things. Even when we go to the restaurants, well,
Right.
what's going to be on the menu? Do you want the chicken, sir, or do you want the beef, or do you want the fish? And it comes with select parts, and then maybe some vegetables that they've got going on, and there you go, you're done. Well, what happens when we waste the rest of the animal is inevitably we're going to be deficient in vitamins and minerals that we're supposed to be getting when
Wow.
we don't waste the rest of the animal, right? And so what ended up happening is I took that book and I actually applied it to my life. And when I applied it to my life, and how I did that, by the way, is I went out hunting
Hmm.
with my brother and a cousin, and we got ourselves a nice whitetail buck, and I harvested everything. And my brother and cousin were totally weirded out. They're like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Hmm.
I grabbed the heart, I grabbed the liver, I grabbed all the bones. I was
Every
sawing
part
them
of it.
up
Yeah. Right.
because I was going to be making soup stock with that, like
Hmm.
everything. And what ended up happening is when I introduced the liver, especially, and the heart was close behind. But what happened when I ate that liver is as one, I literally felt an energy surge that I hadn't felt in years.
Hmm.
And it was at that moment, for sure, I knew that I was lacking things in my diet. And I
Right.
was like, there's something to this without a doubt. And so ever since, I've consumed whole animal. I healed up my gastrointestinal issues within a
Yes.
month. And
Mhm.
I felt like a new human being. My testosterone levels skyrocketed again. I felt like, a young man should feel, which is like young, dumb, and full of cum, as they say, right? So just gunning on all levels, which is
Right.
great.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of my introduction to eating whole animal. I As my career went on, I became a functional diagnostic nutritionist. And basically, that's a long way to say somebody that looks under the hood at what's
Right.
going on with the symptoms. And instead of chasing symptoms, which is what our allopathic medical field does, and they've got a pharmaceutical drug to deal with symptoms. And it's like a game of whack a mole, right? You deal with this symptom and then something else pops
That's
up.
the
And
way. Yeah, they're not preventative. They're not proactive. Like before you
100%.
feel symptoms, teach that. And one of the things that I want to make sure that you get an opportunity to speak about because I'm doing this literally at a Whole Foods, and I'll be the first one to tell you that when they have the food set up, there's a certain meal that I know probably isn't the best, but it tastes better. And if I'm thinking of it from a business perspective, it doesn't have to be a Whole Foods. It can be a Publix or a grocery store, wherever, whatever place sells food. They say, look, we got to sell this stuff. We got to move it off the counter. So I'm going to take the parts of the animal that I know the people are going to buy in bulk. And what Nigel's talking about is great, but I got bills to pay. I got things I need to sell. How do you address that gap in kind of the reality of, hey, this needs to sell versus what's going to be best for somebody's buying? And I think you actually use that example as well. Is very few people are going to go and eat liver versus eating a nice juicy steak with all the fat on it and eat that up and stuff like that. How do you address that gap? Because it's a really wide gap and it's really challenging to get people to see how beneficial it is to them.
Yeah. So as one, just to be clear, that gap of like that taste kind of thing, like how do you close that gap, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Or yeah,
Or how do
yeah,
you,
specific.
well, I mean, again, and it's not realistic to tell people not to eat certain things. I mean, look, I work out and, hey, I know here and there I'll have some fried chicken. I'll have a beer maybe once every couple months or whatever. But when it comes to being very conscious about it and then telling people, hey, this should be on your shelves versus this thing that actually is not going to be healthy for people, it seems that you would probably have a lot of barriers in terms of how to get people to think this way.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And we'll get into that, but the core of my business was addressing that gap in
Mhm.
itself with clients. And then lastly, the final straw was my wife, whom I could not get to consume that stuff. So,
Really? Okay.
my whole business it created because I was unable to successfully get people to close that gap because
Mhm.
there's something about going like as one, like the nutritional value that you're going to get from organ meats is second to none,
Mhm.
right? It's absolutely amazing. But then you're going, yeah, but Nigel, I want to be throwing a ribeye on the grill.
Yeah.
Look at that, smell that, and then look at the liver right next to that on the grill. Which one do you want? And dude, I own Higher Health where
Yeah.
my business is organ meats, and 10 times out of 10, I'm with you reaching
Mhm.
for the ribeye and not the liver.
Yeah.
100% because the taste is there for sure. It's just this juicy steak over
Yeah.
over an organ meat every single day, right?
Right.
So, but that gap of eating whole food, it really does start with that education, and
Mhm.
it's become something that you need to do when you recognize that you're falling short, and you can only fall so short for so long.
Mhm.
And what you don't want to do is you don't want to wait until your back is against the wall and then you're forced to have a look at the allopathic medical pathway where it's like, hey man, you've neglected your body this
Mhm.
long.
Mhm.
Your vitamin mineral deficiencies have led to this really serious problem, and now you're
Right.
looking at a surgery or you're looking at a pretty harsh drug to numb this out,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You don't want to wait until you're at the end. Like there's many analogies, and one of which is like a business. Well, a business does not operate when you just focus on one or two things. Like it actually, the things that you enjoy, you need to also focus on the things that you don't enjoy, or your business is going to crash and burn if you ignore the accounting that needs to go on or the
Mhm.
bookkeeping that needs to go on because you just don't like that. It's going to catch up to you at some point in time,
Yes.
and then you're going to be in huge trouble.
Yes.
And yeah, you're going to be down and out. So filling that gap just starts out. It's slowly with that education piece of going.
Mhm.
You need this to run optimally,
Right.
and some people, a lot of my clients, only recognize that when they can't have a baby. They're trying to get pregnant, but they don't have the fertility levels to do that.
Right.
Um, we've got older gentlemen that are 40s, 50s, 60s going, I've got ED, erectile dysfunction.
Hmm.
What's going on? Oh, I've got to go get hormone replacement therapy, testosterone replacement therapy going on,
Hmm.
and it's still not working that optimally. Well, the reason being is you're still not excused from providing your body with the building blocks to produce
Yes.
adequate levels of testosterone,
Yeah.
right? You still need that.
Hmm.
Um, so that's what happens is that, and some people have larger sensitivities than others, so they're going to run into symptoms faster than others. For you, it sounds like you're predisposed to some kidney failure, some
Exactly.
kidney issues in your family.
Yeah.
So you might run into kidney issues before your buddy Jimmy does, but your buddy Jimmy might run into some other issues because of whatever it is down the line, right? So, yeah, it's just slowing things down and going, hey, if you're missing something in your diet
Hmm.
because you're choosing to go with synthetic or lab made multivitamins, multiminerals,
Right.
uh, or plant based things, and that's it, you're definitely going to be missing out on things, and it's definitely going to catch up to you,
Yes.
right?
Well, the thing is, I'm glad you had mentioned earlier that there is some scammy going on. There's scamming going on in terms of what's emphasized in the food world. And based on what you said in terms of a lot of your clients having to wait until it becomes an actual problem, now they want to kind of play catch up, and now they want to, make sure we're eating right. And it becomes unfortunately for a lot of them, I'm sure a lot of people, and maybe not your clients, but I know personally for a lot of people, unfortunately, that catch up, it becomes way too late. The question I have for you now is, how do you go about educating the youth about this? How do you go about educating young athletes who think they're invincible about this? How do you go about educating, the students who are going around, and because they're young and because life kind of hasn't caught up to them yet, and they're eating whatever, whatever school lunch is, whatever's available. And the sad part about it is a lot of it isn't the young kids' fault. I never blame kids for this kind of stuff. In my opinion, it's the adults that should be making this kind of an important topic in the schools and making it something that is important for them when they're serving kids. How do you go about getting this to the younger generation so they can in turn take what you've built and what you've learned and then apply it to their younger life so it doesn't take till after college for like you to get it and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you touched on the exact thing that we need to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I focus on educating both the youth, but without a doubt, the parents,
Yeah.
the right, because if a kid is eating fast food 7 days a week, is
That
it the
was that was
kids?
in high school, man. At McDonald's right there. It's cheap. Get my dollar menu. We good. And then go try to play a football game. Like how stupid was that?
Yeah, you're fueled on what
Right.
exactly? It's which is a testament to the human body, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? That we can still actually do that. You can play high level football on
Yeah.
like the dollar menu at McDonald's.
Right.
It's crazy, right? But yeah, uh, that starts usually pretty early. Is whose fault is it that there's McDonald's in front of children 7 days a week? Well, that's the parents' fault.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the one that's bringing these foods into the house? If you bring Twinkies and M&Ms and Oreos into the house, whose fault is that? Is it the kids
Mm-hmm.
or is it the adults? So yeah, we have to educate everybody on that, and getting foundational foods into the house
Mm-hmm.
is so important, and the younger the better. So we like with our organ meats, happily we've got so many parents that are how early can my son or my daughter eat, organ meats or consume your product? I'm like, how old should your child be before they start eating real food? That's the question. And
Right, right,
it's kind of a ridiculous question. It's like,
right.
yeah, like, so ideally your child is breastfed up until, 5, 6, well, much longer,
Right.
2, 3 years, whatever it is. But up until that 5 to 6 months, when they start getting introduction
Hmm.
to solid foods, that's when they should have the most nutrient dense foods in
Yeah,
their diet. Beef liver, egg yolks, right? Butter.
right,
These are kids need, because what is breast milk? Well, it is really high in cholesterol, it's really high in fat. And cholesterol is the building blocks for hormone production
right.
and growth hormone. You need lots of that. What do athletes need? They need a lot of that. They
Yeah,
do. And what does your brain function off of? It functions off of fat. It is over 70% cholesterol in the brain. And that's why we see Alzheimer's and dementia
right,
early onset with people that are starving their bodies of that.
right.
It's been the demise of the plant-based push and veganism and vegetarianism, is that they're lacking that, they're starving their brains.
Yeah.
And another thing that comes naturally, especially in organ meats, again, is all those amazing C words: creatine, carnosine, carnitine. Like, these are the carnivore words, the letters that you only get from meat. And the brain operates optimally with these. There's been great studies done when the body is starved from creatine, the
Right.
cognitive function declines drastically when the brain is starved of these things. So getting these building block, these foundational foods back into the diet so that we can operate optimally, both physically and mentally and hormonally, is essential. And what's really inspiring is that there's a lot of people that are getting back to that. They're getting back to what is real food and what is not.
Right.
And it's, in a way, it's helped that our food supply has become so toxic with processed foods and ultra processed foods and
People are
all
waking
these
up. Yeah.
food dyes. It's gone so far. People are like, what the hell is this
Yeah.
that's, on these shelves? What is real food now? And as a result, I believe, because the pendulum's starting to swing back, is, homeschooling has now ballooned to over 5 million families across the US. People want to take control back. Homesteading is on the rise. I'm on my way this weekend to Virginia to Homesteaders of America to meet with a bunch of people that are really interested in food sovereignty and their own food supply, and how do we get that back into our families. And
Right.
it's kids and it's adults moving together in that direction. So
So when it comes to the business that you built, the higher health, how were you able to make it like what is well, I guess the best way to ask it is what is the your method of production? Because again, like I mentioned, I'm here at Whole Foods and I have a background in fitness and some of the top trainers, they'd spend a whole lot of time figuring out how to get the quality products to their clients. And even at a place like this, you don't just get on their shelves. However, because of that, they have to charge a whole lot more than if you were to go to some local grocery store. So when it comes to you and the quality food that you're putting out there, is the process for you long to where only a certain amount of people are going to be able to get it? How do you make it so it's, I guess, available for everyone, given that obviously you have to spend a whole lot of time making sure every single piece of the animal is cut up. You're not just cutting off the good parts, it's every single piece, and that's what you're actually distributing.
yeah, great question. So first of all, you're not going to find us in a ton of stores. That's how we're able to, we ship across the US.
Yeah.
That's how we're able to have full scale, like everything, full control,
Mm-hmm.
and actually present a really premium, high quality product to the end consumer at a great dollar, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to going, trying to get into a Whole Foods or wherever it is, where they need to ensure that they've got so much margin on a product, and then it stresses us out at the bottom, going like, oh, how do we make this
Yeah,
product,
yeah, exactly, right.
you
Because
know
I've known people that have gotten their product in Whole Foods, and they've told me like, man, it really isn't because it was like for maybe a couple months, and then based on the margins of it, you're like, this isn't even why I got into business in the first place to sell and try to have to meet my quota, so to speak.
It, exactly. Yeah. And in my particular business, so a huge differentiating factor between me and any other organ meat suppliers or companies that you see out there is that I work directly with the farms. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I want a good relationship with my farmers. I need them because we only source from regenerative farms in the US,
Hmm.
American regenerative farms that do grass fed, grass finished programs. So, the absolute best farming practices you'll ever see, no herbicides, pesticides, insecticides ever step foot on the land. They work 100% with nature,
Oh,
so your quality, like literally, the
yeah, that's
quality
that's
is
that's
through
major.
the roof. It's major. So the last thing that I want to do is go pick a fight with one of my farmers, asking or telling them, "Hey, you got to lower the price here. I want to get into Whole Foods. I want to get
Yeah,
into Walmart or
yeah,
whatever it is."
yeah.
No, we're not interested in that. I want a winning relationship with my farmers. So I work directly with them, and then how it works is we get the raw organs direct to our facility, and it's a twofold kind of scenario.
Hmm.
Number one is I've got major trust issues with the food supply, and so that's why
Yeah,
I do need to have everything in house. And
yeah,
then number two, yeah, I'm able to get great margins and a really great price for my end consumer because we do everything in house as well.
yes.
No third party manufacturers, so everything's handmade, no fillers or flow agents in these huge machines.
Hmm.
We employ real people to get this done and make a premium quality product. And we just skip, a lot of the major retailers. We go right to our end consumer. We work directly with them, right? So that's
Hey,
how we've
business
done it.
owners, man, he just gave y'all some game. He just gave y'all some real unfiltered game. In many ways, sometimes it's not about the commercial success. It's about the relationship with the people you need so you can get the product to the exact consumer that you're envisioning. All of that is in your own vision. All right. You can't, if you want to build a business, you're going to build an organization, you can't be so focused on what's on the outside. Stuff got to be burning on the inside. He just said it. The relationship with his farmers is utmost important to make sure they're not putting out bullshit. And he makes sure, look, that's more important than getting into some store that isn't going to be conducive to a long-term relationship. You may sell a few products here and there, but it's not going to be conducive when it comes to getting the products to the actual people for the right price. That's a huge lesson. If you want to go back and listen to that, that's a big thing that everybody can apply that system to whatever it is you're putting out there. And I do want to be very respectful to your time, Nigel. Can you just talk a little bit? I'm very curious now to hear about how you see this thing growing after saying all that. Do you see yourself growing into building maybe your own shop? Like, how do you envision the company going in 10, 15 years?
Yeah, great question. So I my goal is my mission is to connect people to real foods. So I want Americans and Canadians for that matter. I operate in both countries. In Canada, we support Canadian regenerative farms for our product for all Canadians so they
Right.
can eat local. And then in the US, I'm in Montana right now, and we support American regenerative farms for our product. And I've built out the warehouse here so
Mm-hmm.
that it's all in house, no third party manufacturers again, so that I can do that. And the idea is, and the mission is connecting people to real food. We need to support American farmers for that quality. If we don't, we keep going overseas. Like when you go buy meat at the grocery store, they no longer, because of the cool program, country of origin labeling, that effect that came in, you don't actually get the right to know where your meat came from. Just
Mm.
because it says produced in the USA or packaged in the USA, what happened 9 times out of 10 is, especially if it's coming from JBS or one of the Cargill, one of these larger slaughterhouses, is that cow came from Brazil, Argentina, New Zealand, wherever it is, Canada, even in some cases,
Wow.
China, Spain. And as long as those primal cuts and the butchering was done here,
In here,
then
man.
they
Now
can say,
wow. So that's
yeah,
how it works, huh?
that's
Oh,
how it works, and it directly undercuts American farmers, and it jacks up the prices for everybody. And if that continues to go on and we don't shift and support American farmers, they're going to cease to exist. Because what business can exist when it
right.
doesn't have customers, or when it's getting, priced out of the marketplace, because these large facilities are driving the cost down, and these farmers are standing there going, we can't compete with this. we need to fold
Oh,
up.
wow.
So yeah, I'm very passionate about that. So I want people supporting American regenerative farmers, and that's what they get when they buy through Higher Healths. And that's super important, is to have that food connection. So the way I see this going is I see people getting really sick and then going, oh my goodness, I need to heal myself. What is real? What can do this? And it's not pharmaceuticals. And many people have done that, going like, I'm sick, I don't feel good, I'm low energy, we
Hmm.
can't have a baby, I no longer
Yeah.
get erections, whatever it
Yeah.
is, or I've got hot flashes and I'm dealing with menopause and like all these disastrous things, or I'm a young athlete and my recovery stinks.
Yeah.
um I'm not jacked up, like
Hmm.
I don't
All the
feel
work,
amped
yeah,
up.
that happens. All the work you're doing, you can't outbeat a bad diet. You just can't.
You just can't. It's going to catch up with you, right? So you're investing all this time and energy to your game, your training.
Hmm.
Why not like give yourself the best chance? And I just, I think folks are realizing, oh my
Yeah,
goodness, McDonald's isn't doing it for me, right? It's
exactly.
and and then
I
going
know there's
into
so
a
many of them.
store. Yeah, and then going into a supplement store where everything's been isolated, all these supplements have been isolated. Oh, I get my vitamin A. Oh, I get my bottle of vitamin D.
Hmm.
Oh, I get my creatine or whatever it is. These things don't work really well isolated. It doesn't work like that in the human body. It doesn't work like that in nature. What happens in nature in a whole food is that all the vitamins, minerals, cofactors, they're all in there together, and synergistically, they work 1,000 times better, which is why our product outperforms plant-based, synthetic, or lab-made multivitamins, multiminerals every single day of the week.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of females, especially that are low iron or anemic. Our 2.2 milligrams of heme iron that's found in beef liver
Hmm.
gets them off of a 150 milligram pharmaceutical option. That's how good real food works, that's bioavailable and is synergistically working with more than just one vitamin or mineral, right?
Hmm.
So that's our goal. And people are going to see that. They're going to start relying, going, oh, wait, I am a human being. I do rely on real food. It does work better in my system. And so that is the future of Higher Health. We're going to become a cornerstone for foundational nutrition
Right.
for the everyday people and athletes across the U.S. That's what's going to happen, and I see it going in a great direction. I'm very excited about that. Whenever I hear somebody turning their back on pharmaceutical and joining the Higher Health team for real food to drive up their hormone production, I love it. So that's what's going to happen. We're going to continue to only support American farms here, and we're going to expand in the U.S.
Right.
and we'll be able to bring more and more to the marketplace, which is great. We're a whole animal company, so the goal right now, we harvest liver, heart, kidney, and spleen. They all have amazing, unique benefits. And the goal is to start to get more and more. I just have to pick more fights with the slaughterhouses to allow
Yeah.
these farmers to sell this stuff in the US. So
Yeah. And what's the best way, if anyone's listening in, for them to reach out to you, and if they want to collaborate more, maybe? Because I mean, me personally, I'll actually just tell you now, because I do a lot of work with a kidney walk. It's gonna be, recording this when October, so it's gonna be actually next month, where there's a kidney walk. I do it every year, where I'll do the warm-ups and kind of put them through certain things. But these are people that, like, tons of people that have been through kidney failures, whether they got the transplant, they knew someone, and all that kind of stuff. How can those organizations who really do care, how can they reach out to you and kind of bring you into to work with them?
yeah, for sure. And by all means, please reach out. Would love to work with you guys.
Mhm.
Anybody that's listening to as one here, you're my people. So let's go. But first of all, I'm going to send you some stuff. I'm going to send you our kidney. It's 100% pure kidney,
Oh,
and
there you go.
yeah,
Appreciate it, man.
I got to hook you up. It's
Yeah.
amazing stuff. So for yourself or anybody that's listening,
Right.
be proactive on your health. Don't wait until your back's against the wall and you got to rely on things that you do not want to rely on.
Mhm.
Be proactive with your health and get on real food where your body can regenerate and heal itself. It wants to heal. It's just like the earth. If you leave it alone for a while, even after it's been hosed down with all the glyphosate, pesticides, herbicides in the world,
Mhm.
eventually it will recover, it'll regenerate, and it'll come back to life. Your body's no different. but you got to be proactive and give it what it needs to be able to do that, the building blocks that it needs. So, yeah, first of all, I'm going to hook you up with that as one. And then, second, anybody that wants to find me, first of all, the website is higherhealths.com, higherhealths with an S.com. And then, me personally, you can easily find me at Nigel at higherhealths.com. Now, and then I'll give you my social here. We're so much better with organ meats and farmers than we are on social, but you can see our
Yeah,
social at
likewise. Yeah, that's a young man's sport right there.
it really truly is. Yeah. So, but find us at Higher Healths USA
Uh-huh.
on Instagram, Facebook. Reach out there, or find me on my email. Reach out anytime, you guys.
Yes. Well, first of all, appreciate the gift, man. I'm definitely looking forward to it because again, it's something that has affected my family a great deal. I know how shaken up I was when my dad told me, and then how he recovered from it, and then even he had friends that have survived it. So in my family, I just always want to be that one to break the trend and teach my nephew, hey, I know you're 13 years old, but these years they go by fast. They'll creep up on you really, really quick. So appreciate you doing that. So I'm able to kind of share that as well. So, all that being said, Nigel, the way I close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You're back in college, you're a kinesiology major, and things are like they're confusing to you because you're now realizing there's some holes in our food system. I want you to pretend that version of Nigel is coming to the Zoom room, give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yeah, what I would say on that for me personally is let's all just put the egos away. And I had a massive one when I was in university,
Yeah.
and just like listen to your body. It knows what it's trying to tell you, and just connect with that as you get educated in whatever it is that you're doing. Listen to your body; it really does know. And the faster and the better communication that you do that, which is what I wish I had when I was, becoming the expert, as they say.
Mhm.
I would have been so much better off. I would have been more adaptable. I would have been more agile in
Mhm.
shifting when things weren't going so smoothly. So I think that's top thing is always listen to your body. It knows what it's telling you.
And there you have it. The mic is officially dropping off that, man. Listen, the information is there. Go out, pay attention, folks. Everyone listening in, you do not have the excuse of you not knowing anymore. So, all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.